Hey guys, welcome back to another episode of Yankee Liv'n here. Hey, can you guess what we're getting ready to do today? Yeah, some kind of bacon. I figured we'd throw a recipe together for a little bit of French bread or Italian style bread. I got some recipes coming up that needs a little bit of French bread and garlic bread and whatnot, so I figured I'd throw this quick little recipe together. So hey, get yourself comfortable, find a nice chair, a cup of coffee. Come on in, I'll bring you in a little closer and I'll show you the ingredients. What we have in this bowl already is some bread flour, and I'm using bread flour because I like the structure of the gluten a little bit better in this style of bread. Yeah, you can get by with all-purpose flour, but hey, we'll save that for a discussion later on in another video about different flours and whatnot. Hey, see what else we got here? We have a couple tablespoons of canola oil, about 1.5 tablespoons of sugar, and 1 teaspoon each of garlic granulated, onion powder, and Italian seasoning. Okay, I put that in. I don't normally put that in the French bread all the time, but if I'm going to be making garlic bread with it, I like those 3 ingredients. It kind of pulls a lot of the other flavors out, and then I can just strictly put in basically garlic butter and make it, or I can use it in a stuffing. I can use it in various different things, but those go really well in an Italian style or French style bread. We have a little bit of cornmeal here, and that's more or less to work the loaf on the pan and whatnot. We have a little bench flour or all-purpose flour here to work the dough itself on the counter. We also have a cup of water here, and we'll be mixing it with, in fact, why don't we get this mixed in there? We have 3 teaspoons of, 2.5 teaspoons of yeast, and we're going to put that in there. We'll put just a little of the sugar in just to get that yeast going. And well, while we're babbling, this can be proofing. And for those of you that do not know what proofing is, which probably most of you out there already know what it is, but I'll go over it just in case there isn't. That's just livening up your yeast. Okay, it's a way of finding out and making sure that your yeast is active, because if you get really old yeast will die after a while. That powdered yeast really on the outside, the crust on the outside of the yeast is really dead. It's the inside pieces that you're blooming, and that's why they call it blooming your yeast and whatnot. And as long as you get a nice foam on top of your water, and this water is about 110 degrees by the way, and put a little bit of sugar in it just so it had something to feed on and it'll proof a little bit faster. Well, it's been about 10 minutes and we've got a nice foam on the yeast here. It tells you it's very active. So what I normally do is I take my wet ingredients and I mix everything in with my yeast mixture, yeast and water. Along with my sugar. Then I put my salt. You want to try to keep your salt separate from your yeast as long as possible. It's not, in this particular bread it wouldn't make much difference, but in longer type breads like in sourdoughs and stuff that takes your fermentation and your rising action just a little bit longer, sometimes your salts can prohibit that just a little bit. I'm going to shut up for a second while I run this. There we go. We just mixed our dry ingredients in there, and of course we have our flour and our cornmeal over here. I have a little bit of extra water just in case we need it and it's a little thick. This particular recipe I've made before, and it has a tendency to be a hair bit thicker, only because I think I'm adding a few different extra ingredients in it and whatnot. So, let's see what we come up with here. Alright, I'm going to, like I say, I'm going to shut my mouth, lock this down, add our wet in here. And what I'm looking for is I'm going to put my wet in, turn my mixer on, and I'm trying to get this to come together in a nice, not ball, but just a good dough consistency. Once that happens, there's nothing dry in the bowl, I'll take the paddle attachment off and I'll put the kneading type of attachment, the hook, the dough hook, whatever you want to call the thing. We'll put that on and we'll start the kneading process from there. Alright, cover your ears. we are just about there. Let me get this on and see what we got on the bottom. Sometimes if you end up with a little bit of dry flour, push it down, your dough down, turn it over. Push it down, turn it over. It'll bring those dry ingredients up. Now, flours are a lot different than other ingredients in baking and various different things, because depending on the weather, we're in the middle of winter, and we have a tendency to get very, very dry weather in the winter time. So your flours are going to be a lot drier. They're going to need a little bit more moisture to come together as a dough. So anytime you're working with any types of breads especially, you're going to have to adjust that. Have a little flour ready, have a little water ready, and we're getting a nice dough consistency now. Nice goodness off in there. Alright. Alright, we'll set that right there for a minute. Put our dough hook on. Come on. Okay, we're going to get it down in there. Now this is the time we're going to turn this on, and we're going to leave it on until it starts coming to a nice ball. Once it comes to a ball, there's a couple different ways you can go. I do it the cheating method because, well, getting older and I've got a lot of arthritis and problems and hand problems and whatnot. So what I'll probably do is once it gets to that ball stage, then I will time it, kneading it on the dough hook. And sometimes what you have to do when you do that, it rides up on the dough hook, stop it for a second, pull it all down, kind of push it down, get it going again for that 3, 4, 5 minutes, whatever you're going to need that particular bread with. Or when it comes to a ball on the dough hook, you can bring it out on the surface. I'll still do a little bit of surface work with it anyway when we're trying to prep the loaf and whatnot. So I'm going to shut up, throw a little music in here or something, and we're going to let this run for a couple minutes. Okay guys, what you're looking for is exactly that. It's come away from the bowl, it's a nice ball of dough. Now you can, like I said, you can go two different ways. You can bring that out on the counter and start kneading it. Once you get that structure that you want and that texture of dough you want, then you can start proofing and whatnot. But I like to run it, I'll run this for about 4 minutes just like that, and that should be just about enough for this. So hey, get ready to listen to some music, and I'm going to run it for 4 minutes. Alright, you see how it's rising up on the dough hook a little bit? Well, to get a good quality knead out of it, you want to pull it down. Get my hand out of the way so you guys can see. I'm not the best photographer or videographer or whatever you want to call it, but hey, between us all we'll learn something, I guess. Now I get my hands, that's a nice sticky dough. It'll come together a little bit more than that afterwards. Lock her down. We've been kneading this for about 4 to 5 minutes, and it's come together really well. It's a nice looking dough. We're going to get it up here, bring it down off the dough hook. Okay, get it into a nice ball here. Work it around a little bit. Okay, we're going to throw a little bit of flour out. Now, you don't have to overdo it. If you start working too much flour, and if your dough is ready the way it is, could get a little bit more toughness out of it. Now if your dough's too wet, yeah, go ahead and work a little bit more flour in it. But okay, now we got our dough. How you can tell it's ready? Well, it kind of springs back a little bit when you're ready from putting it in the final knead before you put it in. All I do is stretch, push, stretch, push. You know, there's not much to kneading. The secret is keeping enough flour, but not very much. If you notice, I've got very little flour. Hey, I'll bring you in for a close-up. All right, that's a little better, not too close, I hope. Okay, like I say, I just stretch, push, stretch, push. You're turning it over. The only thing is you want to do is every once in a while, if this feels starting to get a little sticky, just push a little more flour. You don't need an over a lot. A lot of people put a little too much flour in, and your crumb changes a lot in your bread because you work that dry flour in there and it hasn't had a chance to really do its thing. Okay. All right, it's just about coming together here. You see all that nice little dots in there and whatnot? That's all the seasonings and stuff we put in there. And you can see, you got a nice spring back. Okay. All right, we got a nice ball there. In the oven, I've got my oven light on. Probably the best proof of there is an oven light. I've had that on since I started the recipe, so it's getting nice and warm in there, but not too warm. I've got a bowl. I'm out of cling wrap, so I used a cover. Actually, this is a great a cover. I'll tell you a little story here. I won't try to bore you. Let me back you up a little bit. I feel like I'm all closed in. Yeah, is that a little better? I don't know. When I start talking and it's zoomed in and stuff, I feel like I'm getting crowded or whatnot. Anyways, let's get back to our dough. We get a nice ball of dough, and like I said, if you could only smell, normally when you're making doughs, you just get the nice strong yeasty smell of you're making bread and whatnot. This has a totally different smell. You get that yeastiness, but you have that garlic and onion coming out, all the Italian seasonings, they're coming out and whatnot. Anyways, you get your nice ball, make sure she's nice and springy, okay? And like I was telling you before, I'm out of cling wrap, but I'll tell you a little story about the why I use a cover sometimes. I use this on small rises, which is what this is. If it was a large rise, like a double bowl like this, I have another cover that comes up about like that. But have you ever made bread, and I'm sure if you made a lot of bread, this has happened to you, because it happened to me, and it was a mess, let's put it that way. I forgot all about the bread. Of course, it overrose, went out over the pan, because you got your cling wrap on there. She's out all over the place, and she finds every crook and cranny. You would swear it was a volcano, and it was going down and finding every orifice it could find. But anyways, so you use a cover. That cover is heavy enough. It really won't come out the side. It'll come right up and it'll kind of stop. It'll actually, if it gets to that point, it'll actually collapse itself. That's all there is to it. But anyways, I greased this, greased the bowl. What we're going to do, we're going to put it face down in the bowl first. You know how this goes. You guys have made bread before. Give it a roll around, give it around. Make sure she's down in there. Put a cover on it. And well, get this grease off my hands. Okay, don't give me no hard time about paper towels now. We recycle. They all go to the recycle area. Anyways, let's head this over to the oven. Alright, here we go. Let's get this in the oven. Let's bring it in. And like I say, the oven light will give it just enough time to proof. You guys notice that the stove's a little bit different color? Well, my son went out and bought my daughter-in-law a brand new stove. Wasn't that nice of him? Little did he know, I like it too. Anyways, hey, we'll be back in an hour and a half. Alright, as you can see, it's doubled in size. And, hey, let's punch her down and turn her out. Oh, yeah. Alright, let's get this turned out. I'm going to say, put a little flour out there. Get her all punched down. At this point, do not overwork your dough. You got it deflated. Okay? What I usually do is I just kind of roll it up, stretch it, roll it, kind of put it together. Get that out of your way. Kind of pull your ends together. You want to try to make it as high as possible. These loaves, what they call a free-forming loaf, have a tendency to spread out a lot more. So if you want a fairly tall loaf, try to start out with a fairly tall. Okay, roll it over. Okay, two things. I like to dust my pan a little bit with cornmeal or some semolina flour, whatever you want to call it. Okay, don't be afraid to get a little heavy on there. It'll brush off if you get too much on there. Okay, and the same thing down on my table, or a bench, or a counter, or whatever you want to call it. Okay? Okay, just give it a little roll on it. That's all you want. Okay, you basically got your loaf. You're tucked in nice and neat. Not a big loaf. We're not struggling to make a big loaf. Pop it right on your, get a little bit over here. Pop it right on there. Don't be afraid to form it a little bit more. Get it to your liking. Hey, this is my bread. I'm going to form it the way I like it. When you get your bread, hey, have at it. Get your fingers in there. Okay. Okay. Now the only thing we got to do now, And I just noticed my spray, I don't have an awful lot of it, but it's a fairly dry dough. And I'm thinking, what I'm going to do, just the opposite. A lot of people do. I think what I'm going to do, flour this sheet here a little bit. Like I said, I don't have any sticky wrap. I'm going to flour this sheet. I'm going to crease it in a couple of places to kind of make like a tent like. Okay, and we're just going to do this. All right, we're going to put it right back in the oven. Nice and gentle like. All right, we put that back in the oven to proof our loaf anyways. As I clean up, I guess we can jabber and ratchet jar a little bit and whatnot. That'll take, like I say, this bread making and rising and proofing and all that stuff, you know, it's got a lot to do with your individual kitchen. How warm your kitchen is, how warm your oven is, all those types of things. I've made bread and have it fully double in 45 minutes and take it out in another 20 minutes after you formed your loaf. It's all ready to go. I mean, sometimes it takes longer. As we get into some sourdoughs a little bit later, a funny story when it comes to sourdoughs, I've got a sourdough starter that I've had quite a while, and my granddaughters call it Bobby Baker. Can we feed Bobby Baker today, they say? But anyways, we'll get into that another date and whatnot. But anyways, hey, let's let this rise and I'll bring you back when we're getting ready to pop her in the oven. How's that? Alright guys, here goes nothing. Hopefully we're not going to deflate this. She's a little bit high. Helps if you have a greased, sharp knife. Looks good. So we're going to get it in the oven. Alright, I do believe this loaf is done. Let's oh, that came out nice. Whoa, slipping and sliding around here. Alright, there's our finished loaf, fresh out of the oven. Well, I think that bread turned out pretty good all in all. It's got a nice crust on it, and well, I'm not sure about the crumb yet because I haven't cut into it. It's pretty hot, and I'm really saving it for another project that's coming right up here, and hopefully it'll be the next video after this. And hey, I'll give you a little hint. How's that? The recipe is in this book. Yeah, Stacy Harris's book, the one that I won from Live for Wild channel, his giveaway. Yeah, it's a happy, healthy family tracking the outdoors in. And yeah, we're going to be doing a recipe out of this book, so make sure that you stay tuned for that. Hey, wherever you guys are in your neck of the woods, be it morning, noon, or night, I hope you're all having a great one. Take care now.